easy to do.
Yeah.
A lot to write about.
Yeah, it's going well. It's good. Well, fire away, guys.
We talked to Jalen earlier about what he saw looking over that film, Iowa State. He was pretty critical of himself today and also on Saturday excited about going back and looking at that. What did you guys emphasize and talk about with that game for him?
Well, I appreciate that he, is critical of himself, and I think that if you ask a lot of our players and our coaches, I think we would all be critical of, wanting to be better, which is good, and that's kind of what you want, in your guys. And when you can, like I said, we've been in games where we didn't punt this year, and we had the same approach. Said, hey, what are we going to do better? What are we going to improve on? And so, it's more about, staying out of maybe some predictable situations that occurred. What do we do in executing on first and second down? How does, what do we need to get better at? Where do we make mistakes? And those are things that happen after every week. But, I think when you have a little hiccup like that on one side of the ball, sometimes you can be a little bit rude awakening, kind of slap you in the face a little bit and go, okay, we don't got it all figured out, right? And I would not, and I don't think that we had come into the game and went into the game with that issue, I didn't think there was a lot of complacency with our guys going into the week, or the staff. And so, to go out there and learn and say, hey, it's a tough football game. It's tough. It's college football. It's big time football, right? And you're going to play some games. You can play some teams that are pretty damn good. It was a good team. Obviously we have a lot of things to improve on, but I appreciate that he's again, I've used the word growth mindset with it, discussing him and a lot of our players, and he's like, okay, I got to be better, and I got to be better for them, right? So one of my favorite books, what the heck's it called? I guess it's not that favorite. Extreme Ownership is the book, and there it talks about it's a group of military individuals talks about this mission that they were on, and they had I think it's called fratricide, friendly fire, at an incident, which is obviously a really big deal. You know what I mean? So some communication lines got messed up, and so they're debriefing after the incident, and they have all these different sections of, whatever, this arm of the military. And he was impressed with how every group immediately said, hey, that's my fault. That's my fault. That's my fault. And to see that from our players is good, right? And more importantly, we won the game still, right? So to be able to play that way and still win the game, which is awesome. Good football teams, that has to happen, right? To be able to find ways to win a game no matter what.
We spent a lot of time talking about you guys having so much success on first and second down, getting a 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. What limited you guys from getting in those situations on Saturday where it seemed like it was a lot of 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8s?
Well, it's probably some errors, right? Things that back you up. We had to make some more, second and long, first and long calls than we had all year long. So you have that, and then you look at the number of possessions that were actually in that game, and all those things are compounded. So when you play a low possession game, mistakes and things that you're doing well, like explosive plays, are magnified greatly. And so that was a pretty low possession game. And we've had that the last couple of weeks. And that's okay. That's the way it is. But when you make a mistake, it's magnified, whatever the mistake might be. And so could be a penalty, could be an error in a blocking assignment, could be an errant pass, could be a bad play call, whatever it is, that becomes magnified because you're only going to get, 9 first downs in the game to be able to call a play, right? So you better make them count.
Do you think there's any different ebb and step of the defense this week in practice, or are they the same kind of group that they've been?
Well, I guess you probably ask Coach B that question. I think the group is the group, and I say the group, the team. You go out there, I think they're very, very, very motivated again this week. They know that we're still playing for things that are important, and we're taking it one game at a time. But you can see, that the confidence that they got playing in that game, doing a good job. So yeah, you can say they probably got a little pep in their step. But I think I saw that from the whole team, really. Felt, and even we talked as a staff on Monday after practice, probably today. It's like this week, we feel it's going faster in practice than it was even last week for some reason. It could have been just kind of banged up and stuff like that. And this week so far, the couple practices we've had have been really good.
Do you feel like Kai will be ready to go?
I do. Yep. He's been out there. He's had a couple really good practices, and so it's good to see him back out there running around.
Obviously losing Daniel for extended period of time is big. What do you need to see from the other guys in the room to mitigate the loss of him and what he brought?
Well, we've talked before in this room about what happens when you lose a player, right, for whatever instance, and it really stinks for Daniel, obviously, right? That's a tough deal, but we had talked before the season about the depth that we've had a lot of positions as well, and so regardless of however a player's unavailable, we have to have the next man up mentality, and we feel like we've been able to be diverse enough with the personnel groupings and utilizing and being balanced in the ways that we're utilizing all those positions that we feel like we'll be okay. I do. I'm excited for what that room will continue to do. And I hate saying things like that because it makes it seem like you're not sensitive to what Daniel's going through, and I am. So you don't want to say those things, to slight him and what he has done for this program. So, but I'm excited for the group, the running back group, and they've had a really good week of practice. It's been 3 days, but I'm excited for what they're going to do.
With that, the next man up idea, does it change you much as a play caller when because he's got a unique skill set that maybe the others don't exactly have, right? Does it change how you look at it or call it at all? Or?
It hasn't, and it doesn't, and I think we've had this discussion, I think, every week about how we feel like there's a lot of parity and a lot of skill spots, right? And I think that is still the case, and so you kind of have this, okay, well, all right, he's out, he's in, you know what I mean, right? With when we think about personnel substitutions and how many variables that we have in our personnels, part of the reason we have that is because you feel like you got confidence in a lot of guys to go out there and get their job done and do it. And so those guys, it's not going to change how we go about our business, and it doesn't change my mind at all.
Yeah.
Because I'm still as excited about that group as I was, when we first started talking in August.
Sure.
TCU's team speed. What stands out about that is, you think it's the fastest defense you guys have played this year?
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily have the GPS jet measurements, on how fast they actually are, but they look athletic and they look good. They're definitely an athletic team. You can see that from their secondary, their linebacker core, D-line. There's a group of athletic individuals running around there playing football, playing team defense.
Do you have to be conscious of that with the play calls? Like, for example, like speed stuff to the outside, you have to know that the guys are fast. Like, I guess, how does that weigh into the way you approach a game plan?
Well, I think we do what we do, right? You know what I mean? You always start with playing to your strengths, right? Regardless of what your opponent is, and if you're able to match your strength with an opponent's weakness, right? Then you feel like you have a really good recipe to be successful. But at the end of the day, and I know I've said this before, so I don't want to sound like a broken record. Our number one concern is about us and what we do, how we execute, how we line up, how we block, how we run. And then we factor into, okay, this player is really good. Let's not run his direction or throw his direction or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? So the first step is us, and then we can, manufacture and navigate things that you maybe want to avoid, or you can flip it one direction and make sure you're only running at this guy instead of that guy, or throwing at this guy or that guy. So it starts with us first. But yeah, they're athletic, and there's something that we have to consider.
Jalen discussed working through Friday game plans by down and distance situation, and that a lot of input was sought from him in terms of his thoughts and preferences and what he saw. That sounded a little unusual to me, maybe. Is that something that you typically do with your quarterbacks, or is that something that he's earned more than others, or?
That's a good question. It's something that I've done for a long time. I think, when you kind of run the offense that we try to run, and I've used the word collaboration in this room before with our staff and with the players, and I encourage them to speak their mind and say, hey, because that's where learning occurs, right? When it's collaboration, and if the kids understand why we're doing something, or they need, right, or they have a suggestion, or I tell you nowadays with things like Twitter and all that. I love when guys send me a tweet with a play or something like that, or there's a new drill. I love that stuff. So I love getting their input on what they think would be good or a good play. But him specifically in the quarterback room, that's the trigger man, right? Like I said before, he's the conductor of our orchestra. So we want to make sure that he's very comfortable with everything that we're calling, right? And typically as the week goes on, he knows where the game plan, he has an understanding of what we're doing and what we're trying to do. And I think that there's enough trust there, and I've been fortunate enough that we've had this with nearly any quarterback that we've worked with in the past. If they were uncomfortable with something, we weren't going to call it, right? And we try to figure that out early in the week. You know, we don't want to have that happen on a Friday and find out that I really like this play, and he's like, I think it stinks. You know, well, okay, you know, right? We need to do a good job of explaining why. And I think that our staff does a great job. That Coach C does a great job in the room with him to explain, hey, this is why we're calling this is why it's on the call sheet, and he gets it. So we go through, and a lot of what he's talking about is when we kind of prioritize calls and his favorite calls and make him write down his. I said, if you were the offensive coordinator, how would you start this game? What would be your first play call? What would be your first 15 plays, right? And he gives me his list of plays. It's 15 passes, by the way.
Anything else for Coach?
Well, I appreciate y'all. Thanks. Have a good day.
As a walk-off, we could have done 5 more.